Hello and welcome back to the Witches Brew podcast. I am your host, Amanda. In this week's witchy topic, we are talking about tarot cards and oracle cards. History about them, why I like them, as well as pros and cons about each of them. I feel like quite a few people read cards, so some of this might be new to you. Some of it might not be. We're all kind of on our own journey. The reason I like cards, again, last week we talked about all sorts of different types of divination. But the reason I gravitate towards cards is, honestly, there's a lot of different reasons. I really like that each deck has their own personality. They have a lot of different artwork options to choose from. This is vintage tarot, and I keep splitting the deck to the Ace of Wands in reverse. And then we also have like a mermaid oracle deck here as well. But there are so many different artwork options. There are so many opportunities for artists to really express themselves through the cards. I like the fact that once I learned how to read tarot, now I can pick up pretty much any Rider-Waite Smith deck and be able to read it. Oracle cards, kind of a different beast. I don't read oracle cards as much because I'm just so familiar with tarot. But what I like with oracle cards is they can provide you with different types of insight that tarot can't. I like to use them in conjunction when I can, because typically the oracle deck will offer me a different perspective on the information that my tarot cards are giving me. I also like the fact the decks are pretty compact. You can also get them in like pocket size versions, which I personally don't like the pocket size version. I don't like how they feel in my hands. It's definitely a sensory thing for me. But they are very easy to carry around. They are pretty easy to read in public. If you are a charm caster, it is a lot more difficult to carry your box of charms around and all of your mats. It's also less, maybe not as inconspicuous to read those in public. They're definitely more noticeable. Same with the pendulum. So my pendulum here from recording last week's episode. Not as incognito as you might hope. Tarot cards are definitely more in the mainstream than they were, especially with Agatha All Along that released in 2024. The tarot movie, I didn't see it, I'm gonna be honest, but that released, I think 2024, 2023, I think 2024, because I was reading tarot by then. I also really appreciate that you can find a lot of different options for tarot and oracle cards at stores that are common, like Barnes and Noble. I really like the accessibility of them. And if you search tarot or oracle cards on Google or Etsy or whatever, you'll find so many different options. I feel like, honestly, the pendulum would probably be the most popular after that, if you're like doing online searches. We're going to talk about tarot first. So tarot originated as a card game in Italy in the mid 15th century, and it was called tarocchini. It started to be used by French occultists for divination in the late 18th century. So it was not used for divination right away. It took a while. And honestly, versions of the original game are still found in parts of Europe, which is pretty cool. But there is a total of 78 cards in the tarot deck, including major and minor arcana. For major arcana, there are 22 cards that range from the Fool, which is card 0, all the way up through the World, which is card 21. And it depicts the Fool's journey and the archetypes that he meets along the way. Now, if you're reading tarot cards, typically when you get a full major arcana spread or a mostly major arcana spread, that is generally supposed to be a really big message that you're supposed to be paying attention to. Next would be the minor arcana, and there are 4 suits in tarot: the wands, the swords, the pentacles, and the cups. Each are associated with their own element. I can spend forever talking about tarot, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But each suit has a total of 14 cards. Cards 1 through 10, or the ace through 10, and then 4 face cards, which are generally characterized as the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. Now with the face cards, there are some variations across decks as to what they are called, but again, typically they can be read in the same way. Someone just reminded me over here that the suits across tarot decks can be called different things, but again, they mean the same thing. So like the deck that's in front of me is traditional wands, swords, pentacles, cups. But I have another one right here. This one is called Spirit Song Tarot. And this is like, so many feathers, acorns, things like that. So called different things mean the same thing. Although there are some variations, the most widely used iterations are going to be the Rider-Waite and the Thoth decks. I have not read a Thoth deck. I typically do Rider-Waite because honestly, Rider-Waite is the most popular. That's what I learned on. I would love to read some Thoth someday, and I'm sure I will. Again, I just tend to gravitate towards Rider-Waite. Now, the pros is once you learn all 78 cards, you can read with pretty much any deck with ease. Okay. There are also lots of options for people who are new to tarot. And I don't have my beginner deck here because I'm lending it to my mother-in-law. because she wants to learn how to read. And she was having a hard time with, she actually tried the illuminated tarot first, which I actually have sitting on my deck as well, or sitting on my desk as well. So I'm sorry, I can't show that to you, but they do have versions that have the little picture. They have the adjectives associated on the bottom and the top. Some of them have a ton of information where you can find like what zodiac and what planet and masculine and feminine and all this other stuff along with the adjectives for upright and reversed. I chose an option. It was the Neoteric Feminine Tarot, and the creator is Wyspell, Wyspell. I have another iteration of that deck up there without the keywords on it. The keywords were very helpful for me along with the guidebook before I got really comfortable reading it. So I'm just putting that out there. If you struggled with just the cards and the guidebook, would be a great option for you. There are a ton of different decks out there. Find one that resonates with you. So let's talk about the cons. There are 78 cards, both a pro and a con. It can take a while to get comfortable and to make sense of what you're seeing, and also be comfortable with how you're reading them. I very recently, like within the last month or so, switched up how I read. And now, not that it didn't click into place beforehand, but now I'm able to better communicate the meanings of the cards. So what one person does, like if there's a specific tarot reader that you like, might not work for you. Even if like you and I get along great, we're very simpatico and our energies match really well, I could read in a way that does not make sense to you and vice versa. So if you've tried it before, I recommend giving it time, because it took me 15 months since I started reading. Not that I wasn't comfortable beforehand. I did take classes and I have so many tarot books and things like that, but it takes time. It takes time. Sorry, that was a little bit of a ramble. Let's talk about oracle cards before I keep rambling about tarot. I will say, last thing about tarot, if you would like me to do a series that's more in depth with tarot, if you want more information about tarot, let me know, because I've been thinking about doing either a series or like an online course, something like that. Of course, I would leave the freaking 10 of Swords on the bottom. Okay, guys. Let's talk about oracle decks. So oracle decks can actually be traced back to ancient practices, which I did not know. I find fascinating. Although people used similar cards throughout history, oracle cards didn't really become widely popular until the New Age movement, which happened in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. They do not have the same structure as tarot cards. Again, I like tarot because type A personality here. I love structure. And that's what tarot is. However, because there is no structure, artists have, and deck creators in general, not just the artists, but they have so much more leeway with oracle cards than they do with tarot, because there is no specific structure. So I'm feeling called to pull out some of my different decks over here. Oracle decks can range in the amount of cards that they have. My smallest deck has like maybe 30. My largest deck has like, I think it's the archetype, sorry, the Wild Unknown archetype deck. And those are the circular cards. Just looking. Yeah, this says 78. But I also like, again, with Oracle cards, not only can the artwork be so different, but I feel like decks can come in so many more different shapes and sizes because there's so much more leeway with Oracle cards. And I feel like, again, this is just my opinion, if you're going to pick up cards, I feel like Oracle cards are probably the most beginner friendly because they can be, not that you can't read tarot intuitively, but they can be more intuitively read than tarot can. In fact, there are people that teach whole systems and have whole schools based off of how to read tarot intuitively. But again, you miss out on a lot of the deeper meaning that tarot cards present. Not that Oracle cards can't have deeper meanings as well, because this one is separated by, and again, this is the Wild Unknown archetypes. This is the pocket version. Now, I feel with Oracle cards, some are broken down into smaller categories. So like this one has the selves, the places, the tools, and the initiations. And some of these I have trouble reading intuitively. So I guess it kind of depends on the deck that you choose as well. But in general, I do feel like these are a little bit more beginner friendly, a little bit more accessible, in my opinion, than tarot cards can be. Tarot, for the people that I've talked to, tarot cards can present a lot of frustration because of how much time it takes to learn. Again, this can be seen as a pro and a con, is the lack of structure. And it kind of depends on what person you are. I enjoy structure, but here, this is the Between Worlds Oracle deck for those of you that are watching on YouTube. This is another great one. But again, this Between Worlds, completely different vibe than the mermaid one. I should just do a video of like deck tours. Is one better than the other tarot? Is one better than the other, tarot versus Oracle? I think that depends on the person. There are some professional readers out there that really only use Oracle cards. There are some that use only tarot cards, and there are some that use both. It is totally up to you. It depends on what kind of reader you are. It depends on how much you trust your intuition. And it also depends on how much time that you have. When I started reading tarot, a 9-card spread could take me like 30 to 45 minutes to read, depending on how the cards fell. But oracle cards, again, depending on the deck, I feel like I can shuffle these. Some would fall out and I would have a pretty good idea of what my spirits were talking to me about just based off of the card itself, not even getting into the guidebook. Is the guidebook needed sometimes? Yes, sometimes I still even reference like the tarot guidebooks, right? Both of them are a practice. I'm not going to tell you one is better than the other because what works best for you is probably going to be something very different than what works best for me. So my recommendations for selecting a deck, whether it's tarot or oracle cards, find one that calls to you. Some people say that you have to be gifted a deck. That is not true. Okay, that's a very old practice. And really, who would better know yourself than you? So find one that speaks to you, find one that calls to you, and go from there. Again, that is my recommendation. And if you are looking, I have another video coming out on my YouTube channel on Monday or Tuesday of next week after this comes out, where I go through actually some of these decks that I have in front of me and I show you how I cleanse them, how I prep them for use for the first time. So if that is something that you are interested in, go check out that video. That will be released Monday or Tuesday next week. If you're already subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll see it pop up on your feed when it is posted. But I hope this helped. I know that there was a lot of information. I know I got a little rambly. I can honestly talk about this forever. And now I think I'm going to go read some tarot. So I love you and I will see you again next week. Bye.